on the mountain. That expedition was considered a success if one person from the team reached the summit of Mount Everest. Just one. 300 people. If one hit the summit, that was considered a success. Nowadays, unfortunately, a lot of the commercial trekking teams guarantee success to all of their clients. And they can go up with 10 or 12 or 15 people, and they guarantee success. So they push them really hard and sometimes too much, as Scott Fisher did on this day. Before leaving for this particular expedition, Scott Fisher was talking to a reporter about the upcoming climb. And the reporter asked him, how you plan on climbing the mountain this time. And Scott Fisher said, same as the last time, because we have the mountain figured out. Well, he didn't. So there's the glacier on the right, and you basically follow the glacier for about 8 miles. This is a little town called Lobuche. We're now about 5, 6 miles from Mount Everest Base Camp. There's an Italian research center that is set up near Mount Everest. It's all solar powered. They have actually solar powered flush toilets at this place. I have no idea how that works, but they do. So these two, I took this picture in part because of those two containers down there. Those are actually solar, they're like microwave ovens. They're solar powered food ovens. And you see the yin and yang symbol there. That's actually the symbol of a commercial trekking group out of England called Exodus. And they rent space along the trail to put these solar-powered ovens. And then the porters, or the teams, will head into town a few hours before the rest of the team shows up. And they'll actually prepare the food and put them in these solar-powered ovens, so that when they get into town, they actually have hot meal waiting for them. It is not cheap, but it's pretty convenient. So off we went. This is a peak called Pumori. It's otherwise known as Everest's sister. It was very significant for our climb because it's right at our mountain that we climbed, Kalapathar, sits right at the base of Pumori. The beautiful triangle. It's a 26,000-foot mountain. And as we came over the ridge, that's what we saw. That little brown mound is Kalapathar. It means brown mound, or black mound. And that's where we climb. When you go to Mount Everest Base Camp, you can't see Mount Everest from Mount Everest Base Camp. So if you wanted a good view of Mount Everest, you have to go someplace else. And we chose to climb that mountain, Kalapathar, where we were able to get a really good view of the south side of Mount Everest. But first, Base Camp. That's a little town called Gorab Shek, and there's the glacier on the right. And there from Gorab Shek is our mountain. You can actually see the trails carved into the left and the right. Gorab Shek is translated into Dead Ravens. That little area there on the left, that's all smoothed over. The reason that is smoothed over is because that was the site of the world's highest cricket match between Nepal and England. Guess who won? Nepal. Yeah, Nepal. The Sherpas also run it's the site of the world's highest marathon. The Sherpas will actually run a marathon from Gorab Shek all the way down to Lukla. And it also holds the distinction of being the site of the world's highest parliamentary meeting. A bunch of Nepali politicians were actually helicoptered up to that flat area to talk about climate change. Half of them passed out from lack of oxygen. So, politicians are the same everywhere. So off we went, off to Mount Everest Base Camp. It's about 3 miles from Gorab Shek. That's the only sign that you get. The rest of the way, you just follow the glacier.
Is the glacier receding?
Yes. When Hillary and Norgay were there in 1953, it was 14 miles long. When I was there in 2010, it's just under 10 miles long. So it's over about 5 miles in, 60 years. There's a gigantic, enormous glacial lake. I wish I could, the distances are so deceiving. The glacier itself, Mount Everest Glacier itself, is now, as I said, it's about 10 miles long, but it's about 4 miles wide. So that lake there is probably maybe 6 or 7 stories high of ice, and maybe it's a 10 or a 12 acre lake. And it's constantly shifting. The glacier is always moving. Right before base camp is this whole group of seracs. These are called seracs. These are huge ice mounds. Again, it's deceiving, but they're 12, 15 feet high, and it's those glacier seracs that Everest climbers have to actually navigate through on their way up the mountain. And there we are at Mount Everest Base Camp. There's an enormous rock. It's the size of a refrigerator up there. It's a place of huge emotional release. People were crying and brought whiskey and stuff up there with the ice field behind us. Another shot of the kind of weather we got. It was quite cold and snowy. The mountain that you follow the whole way to base camp is called Nuptse. It's the 8th or 6th highest mountain in the world. It's Everest's sister mountain. It sits right next to it. It's one of my favorites. It's a beautiful looking mountain. Here's my rock star shot. Hillary himself said that Mount Everest was, seeing Mount Everest for the first time is like walking into a room and seeing this enormous, ugly person in a room full of beautiful people. Mount Everest, he felt that Mount Everest was not pretty compared to all the mountains that surrounded it. So the next morning, at 17,000 feet, we crossed over that field and headed up to Kalapathar. Kalapathar is 18,350 feet. It's the little place where we were actually able to see Mount Everest. That night, at 17,000 feet, the temperature got to minus 33. It was a little bit chilly. When we started climbing, it was minus 20, so the temperature was going up. And there's Mount Everest. We had the amazing privilege of seeing, in the 12-hour period, of seeing both the sunrise and then the moonrise behind Mount Everest. And the temperature, as soon as the sun came up, it had a long way to go, but as soon as the sun came up, the temperature shifted by about 40 degrees. So once the sun was up, it went from about minus 20 to about 20 degrees, which is like a heat wave.
Any altitude sickness between the two of you?
We didn't. And part of that was because we took a long time. There's commercial trekking groups, and I read about it in the book, who passed us by who were in obvious distress, and they were taking 8 days, 9 days. We took 17 days. So I couldn't imagine doing this in 9 days. How many days are you giving yourself?
We don't exactly know. Yeah. We don't really have that.
One
of the people that we're traveling with is living in Alaska right now, so we can wait till she gets there.
Just to give you guys, you thought what we did was crazy. Just to give you guys some idea of what they're doing, they have no plan. They're just going to get on a plane and go. They don't know how long they're going to be there. They don't know how they're going to get there.
No, we know how long we're going to be there.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't know how long you're going to be on the actual trail.
There will be a plan by the time you get on the airplane.
Yeah.
They're traveling with me. Yeah. So it's a little crazy.
But they're doing it right. I really loved not being part of a commercial trekking group. I really loved being able to say, no, I'm not really feeling it today. Let's just only do 500 feet, or let's do 400 feet and see where we end up. And it really helped us. And it feels like being at, has anyone been to the Rockies or any place at altitude? Have you gone up a 14er in the Rockies?
Yeah, last week actually.
Oh, last week. Do you feel the altitude? Have you felt the altitude? And it really feels like it feels like you're walking in glue, right? I mean, it really didn't affect me lungs-wise or headaches, but it just felt like my body just felt like I was walking through. I could feel like
It's the exact opposite. My lungs hurt.
Did they?
My legs felt better, if not as good, if not better than they do when I hike.
Really? It was just the opposite for me. It was just like walking in molasses.
Or something, and I take 2 steps. And I couldn't breathe anymore. I go up the stairs.
But you know what was funny is that when you forget, right? So like you're feeling good, and you stand up fast, or you turn really fast, and then it's like whoa, and all of a sudden it just hits you like that. That's how it hit us. But we didn't really, because we took our time, so we were fortunate that way. So on the way up, you can see the south side of Mount Everest. There's a close-up view. That's Mount Everest.
Now, one side of that is in China, right?
Yeah, this is the Nepal side. The other side is in China. We're in Tibet, depending on who.
Do they climb it from both sides?
Yeah. Yep. Well, the permit from the China side is way more expensive. But yes, they do. There's the top of our mountain. You can actually see it coming into view. That's the only shot of the two of us at the summit of Kalapathar, 18,352 feet. That's the highest that I've ever been. There's the shot you saw earlier. That's the border of Tibet and Nepal. Believe it or not, in that little pass right there, right to the left of the, right here, there actually is a pass right there that Tibetans come down from. I can't imagine, but it exists. Another gorgeous view of Everest in the middle and Nuptse on the right. And I took the same shot in black and white. There's the ice fall. That's where the base camp was, and that's also where the avalanche took place a couple of months ago, right up the ice fall there. And that's what when you're scaling Mount Everest, you actually have to climb through that. The Sherpa would have to climb through that about 16 or 17 times over the course of the climb. A Westerner, his Western client, would have to climb through that about 5 or 6 times over the course of the climb. It's considered the most dangerous part of the Mount Everest climb. Looking back down from our mountain, it's a triple peak, the one that we're on, and you can see the two other peaks there. And there's a shot of the glacier. It's actually straight, the glacier. It is not curved, but we're so high up that actually we're looking at it as a curve. There's another view. Mina's off to the left there, and right in the middle. Coming back down to Gorbachev, and that's how we slept. Mina was in a, that is a 800 fill down, with a base layer underneath, a -20 sleeping bag with a -15 liner, and a quilt on top.
Was that your own gear, or did you, was that your own gear?
Yes, that's all of our own gear that we use for the White Mountains. Anything, we figured, because we hike in the White Mountains in January and February, so anything that you use for the White Mountains you can use here. Now, if we're actually scaling Mount Everest, then that would be a whole different level of gear that we would need. But for where we were, our White Mountain gear was fine. Hello, Kitty. I have a niece who, when she was 3, was obsessed with Hello Kitty. And during all of my travels, when I went to Chicago or the Grand Canyon or wherever I went, I took Hello Kitty. And we became pen pals, my niece and me, Hello Kitty. And I would write to her, ask Hello Kitty, and we'd take pictures and stuff like that. Well, my niece is now 9, and she wants nothing to do with Hello Kitty, and she's a fan of Barbie. And I'll be darned if I'm going to strap a Barbie to my backpack. So Hello Kitty has become our mascot. On the way down, we were fully acclimated by that time. What took us 13 days, what took us 12 days to go up, took us 4 days to go down. That's looking back, that's the classic view of Amadalden that we didn't get on the way up. And I'll end the slideshow with a nice shaggy yak near Meenakshi Bazaar. And that's it. So, yeah, go ahead, hit me. It was an amazing experience. It's an amazing place. Asia is an incredible place. You have to step way out of your comfort zone to be comfortable there. But I would recommend it to anyone. Come on, you have to ask.
I'm sorry, I'm kind of late. Did you talk about safety in general?
Yeah.
About different
Yeah.
things?
Well, it was.
It was very peaceful.
We had no issues. How big is your group?
Well, we're going to use them for only.
At our smallest point, we
Three of us.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Can I get something for you before you leave? Oh, okay. Grab a card or like a bookmark or something. You can look me up online. It's awfully safe. There's the two main trekking areas of Nepal are the Mount Everest trek, which we did, and the Annapurna, which you're doing. And it is designed for tourists there. There are tea houses and hostels and all sorts of things like that. They are very, very they look out for themselves. Even the small things, like we're in Namche, like I'll give you an example. When we were in Namche, one of the stables, their horses got out. And the horses started running down the street, these wild horses running down the street, and it knocked over a tourist. And that was the big excitement of the day, because knocking over a tourist is like the worst crime that you could commit. Because without tourists, you're nothing. So they really take care of you, and they will really take care of you. If you were trekking alone, then I would say you might want to take some other. Yeah, but if there's 2 or 3 or 4 of you, there's no issues. Now, if you're going to the western part of Nepal, into the Dolpo or up into the Mustang region, where there's no trails and you have to have a guide and nobody speaks English, then I would say you have to take a whole different series of precautions. But up here, and then I would say, the same thing goes, right? I mean, if you would you leave your house at 2 in the morning to walk in the dark alley? No. So don't leave your tea house at 2 in the morning to walk through the Himalayas. So otherwise, you're going to be fine.
But like getting in public transportation is something you don't really have to worry about. It's not
Oh, well,
like
public transportation is something you have to worry about, but not in the way that you're thinking.
Okay, yeah, I mean, if you're in a telephone pole, I get that danger, but.
You weren't here when I talked about so you're going to fly to Kathmandu, and then you're going to have to take a bus to Pokhara, I assume, right? You realize what that bus is called, right? Do you know what the bus is called? It's called the death bus.
I've been warned,
Yeah. It's literally called the death bus. That's what trekkers call it. It's like Lukla, because the ride from Kathmandu to Pokhara is it's a few hours long. It's not a short ride, but you go up and over mountains and around these crazy curves, and you're like looking out the window, and there's it's like one of the. Look it up. Go to Google and look up bus ride to Pokhara. So getting around Nepal is, I was about to say, half the fun, but it's also like it's nerve-wracking. And that's going to be your most nerve-wracking thing. I wouldn't worry about safety. And everybody's going to speak English too.
English.
Yeah, everyone is going to speak English, and you'll pick up some of the language too. Like he is my Dai. I would address him as Dai. He is an older Nepalese gentleman, but not like old like.
So you've been Annapurna?
I haven't been up there. These folks are going up down.
Annapurna is more easier than
Yeah.
Mount Everest. So you don't have to worry for Annapurna. And you can take flight from Kathmandu to Pokhara.
Yeah.
Just
Oh, you're gonna-
19-minute flight.
Are you going to fly or are you going to take the bus?
We
Oh,
don't
they don't know yet. They don't know what they're
Oh,
going
the
to do.
death bus sounds great.
Just
Do you have a cousin in Kathmandu?
Yeah. My mother-in-law lives in Kathmandu.
You have a see? His mother-in-law
My
lives in
mother-in-law
Kathmandu.
and my nephew, he's a software engineer in Kathmandu.
To exchange emails before you leave. The people are incredibly friendly, right? I mean, like for a Western tourist in Nepal, you can literally knock on anyone's door and they will let you give you meals.
So I grew up in Annapurna area.
And Pokhara is very tourist
Yeah,
friendly.
yeah, very.
Yeah, and very
You will not see
clean.
like Kathmandu, and Pokhara is more beautiful than
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
It's going to change your life.
I got a question.
Oh,
Is
yes.
their winter like our winter?
Say that again?
Is their winter like our winter?
Yes, it's like our winter times 1,000. In December, January, February, the Himalayas from about from about 13,000 feet all the way to Mount Everest Base Camp, everything closes. And there's no access and you can't get there. And yeah, unless you need a plane, yeah, you can't walk it. There's just no way to do it. But the winters in Kathmandu are not very severe at all, right? You get a little rain and a little bit of snow, but
no
yeah.
snow.
But the winters in the valley are like you'd be in the Carolinas. Yeah. So cool. Well, thank you all very much. I actually have books for sale. And,